Hello, everyone. Today we'll begin with chapter 6, that is the landforms of the earth. So, we'll try to understand in this video, we'll try to understand what are landforms, how are landforms important, and we'll try to do one landform, that is the mountains. So, please have this goal at the back of your mind. By the end of the video, you should be able to understand what are landforms, how are landforms important, and the third goal is to understand the mountains and the various types of mountains. So let us begin. Now, what are landforms? From the word itself, land form. If you break the word land formation, so landforms are basically the various natural features that you see on the surface of the earth are known as the landforms. All right. Now, landforms on the basis of elevation, that is a height. Elevation means height. There are three landforms that can be identified. The first landform are the plains. Plains are basically flat surfaces at lower elevation, meaning lower height. So that is your plains, elevation at lower height. The second type of landforms are the mountains, which are basically at really higher elevations. So if you have a look at the picture, mountains are at higher elevation. And the third landform that we see are the plateaus, which are at a slightly higher elevation than the plains, but lower elevations than the mountains. So these are your plateaus. Now, these are the three basic important landforms that are categorized on the basis of height. Mountains at a great height, then coming to plateau, which are at a slightly lower height than the mountains, and the plains. So, what are landforms? Landforms are basically the natural features that we see on the surface of the earth are known as landforms. Landforms could be, features like mountains. It could be features like plains, plateaus, even valleys are landforms. Glaciers are landforms. So those are the examples of landforms. And according to height, there are three types of landforms: plains, mountains, and plateaus. Now, moving to next, let's have a look at the various features associated with each landform, that is the mountain. So let's begin with mountain. Now, what are mountains? The various features: mountains have steep slopes. Always try to associate mountain with steep slope. Because they have steep slope, that's why they're more prone to soil erosion. So they're more prone to soil erosion. That's why you will notice that they will not have fertile soil and are not suitable for the development of agriculture. So that is the first feature of mountain: steep slope, more prone to soil erosion, and that is why they are not suitable for agriculture. Second, you will see that mountains are mostly covered with forest or snow. Even the population density is very, very low because of its inaccessibility and lack of proper transportation. So they don't have any accessibility or lack of proper transportation. That's why most of the mountains are inaccessible and have low population density. Next, you will see that food gathering, hunting, and grazing are some of the most important or common activities that you see in the mountain areas. Now, role of the mountains: how are mountains important to us? Mountains act as a barrier between different regions and cultures, and one very important example is the Himalayas. For example, India and China, Himalayas have separated India and China. That's why India and China have their different region and culture, because they are Himalayan mountains which act as a barrier between the two countries. Next, in India, for our country, mountain, the Himalayas play a very, very important role, because the monsoon winds, when during monsoon, when the monsoon winds blow from the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal, they are obstructed by the Himalayas. Therefore, India gets monsoonal rainfall. I'll try to use the picture here. Now, if you have a look here, it's India, China. As the southwest, our monsoon always blows from southwest direction. As the southwest monsoon tries to approach towards the northern part of India, the Himalayas act as a blockage. They act as a barrier. They block the path, so they allow maximum rainfall to take place in our own country. So India gets monsoon rainfall because of the Himalayas blocking the path of the southwest monsoon. So that is how agriculture is really beneficial in India, because the monsoon. Economy of India also benefits because of the monsoon. Now, the second role played by the Himalayan mountain ranges are to obstruct. So the second role, the Himalayan mountain ranges obstruct the cold winds coming from the Central Asia. So if there were no Himalayas, I'll just draw a picture here. This is Indian. So Himalayas are here. So imagine the Central Asia. This is the Central Asia. All the cold winds coming from Central Asia would have entered India if there were no Himalayas. But because we have Himalayas, the Himalayas act as a barrier. It blocks the cold wind from entering our country. That's why the northern plains of India do not freeze in winter. Now here they've given you example of Konkan coast. Here I'll just try to use the example here. You just have to remember two terms here. One is your windward side, one is your rain shadow, which is also known as your leeward side. Now there are two side of the mountain. One is your windward side. Windward side of the mountain is an area which receives more rainfall, like you can see in the picture here. This part of the mountain is getting a lot of rainfall, that's why they are known as windward side. Whereas this part of the mountain is known as rain shadow, which is also known as leeward, which means little or no rainfall. So that part of the mountain which receives little or no rainfall is known as your rain shadow or leeward side of the mountain. And here they've given you an example of Shayadri or the Konkan coast in the western part of our country. Next feature of mountain here is something to do with tourism. Tourism can develop where the mountains are accessible, especially the hill stations, Darjeeling, Sikkim, all the hill stations like Mount Abu are accessible, and they attract a lot of tourists because these mountain areas are accessible. Next, mountains can even help in the development of projects. Hydel power projects are effectively developed in the mountain areas. So these are the few characteristics of mountain and the role of mountains. Now moving next, plateaus. Let's have a look at plateaus. Now, how are plateaus important? Plateaus always are rich, have rich mineral resources. That's why mining is a very important activity. And that's why, example, Chota Nagpur Plateau, the African plateau, which is rich in minerals like gold, diamond. So plateaus are areas which are rich in minerals. So mining becomes an important activity in the region of plateau. Next, plains. Plains, they are low lying, very fertile soil, suitable for development of transport network, can easily be developed. Roads, railways, easy to construct. Industries can easily construct. Even urban development takes place. So plains are densely populated because of the level surface. Now, types of mountains. That is the second goal for today's class. The first part we cover what are landforms, how are landforms important to us, and the various types of landforms. Now, let's have begin with mountains. So, what are mountains first? Mountains is a portion of land surface which rises abruptly from the surrounding area. So, it's a very steep land which is rising to great height above this land surrounding it. So let us try to understand how are mountains formed. Now, mountains are basically formed because of crustal movement, that is the movement of the plates. Now, as we all know, the surface of the earth is made of series of rock layers, crust, mantle, and core, which we've already covered in the previous chapter. So, because there is intense heat in the earth's interior, which does not travel to the surface because rocks are bad conductors of heat. So, this leads to the formation of, of different movement of the plates which move in the below the surface of the earth, which can lead to the formation of mountains. So mountains are basically formed because of crustal movement, that is the movement of your tectonic plates. Now, on the basis of structure, there are four types of mountain. One is a fold mountain, block mountains, volcanic mountain, and the residual mountain. So let us try to understand each in detail. First, from the word itself, folds. Why are they called fold mountains? The reason they are called fold is because they are formed by folding. This process is known as folding. Alright, because they are formed by folding of what rocks? Sedimentary rocks due to lateral compression. So let's take this example of this picture that is given here. So imagine these are layers. These are layers of sedimentary rock. When there's movement of plates, the sedimentary rocks move towards each other. What happens as they move towards each other? There's folding of rocks takes place. This folding of rocks can lead to mountains, which are known as fold mountains. Fold mountains are the most common and the most popular mountains that you see in the world. They are formed basically by large scale movement of the Earth's crust, especially the horizontal compression. So this is known as a horizontal compression. This type of movement, when they move towards each other, that is known as a horizontal compressional forces. Now, fold mountains are of two types: the old fold mountain, which I'll explain later, and the young fold mountains. Okay, fold mountains are Himalayas are your fold, Alps are your fold mountains. So fold mountains are basically formed because of the compression of the sedimentary rock, leading to folds, or leading to wave like formation called folds. All right, so that is how fold mountains are formed. Moving to the next, block mountains. How are block mountains formed? Block mountains are formed due to the development of faults. This is a very important word. Now you must know fold mountains are formed because of folding. Okay, so the process that leads to the formation of fold mountain is folding. Okay, whereas block mountains are formed because of faulting. Faulting meaning development of crack. Okay, so block mountains are formed because of the development of fault or crack on the crust. Now fault can be two type: normal fault and reverse fault. So let's try to understand each in detail. First we'll try to understand what is a normal fault. So this is a picture of a normal fault. So horizontal tensional force are responsible for the development of normal fault. Rift valleys are formed due to the downward movement of the landform in a normal fault. This portion of the landform which is not affected remains at a high elevation and forms block mountain. So what is happening when there is crack that is formed? Imagine this is a crack. So when this crack that occurs, which is parallel to each other, this part of the surface subsides, meaning it goes below, whereas the other side it lifts up. The part which has gone down is known as a rift valley, and the part which has uplifted up is known as your block mountains. So these are how block mountains are formed because of the normal fault. Normal fault, you must always associate the word horizontal tension. Okay, that is your subsiding of the portion of the middle portion land subsides below. Moving to the next. Now, the formation of block mountain due to reverse fault. Now, before we understand reverse, I'll just quickly help you understand this picture. This is your normal fault, the previous slide that we have covered. Now, how a block mountain form? Because if this is the original surface, because of the horizontal tensional, when the two plates move apart from each other, when plates move apart from each other, what is happening? The middle portion rises, the middle portion rises below the middle portion, whereas at this side it goes above. So this can lead to the formation of block mountain. Now block mountain due to reverse fault. How are block mountains formed? Because of reverse. How now, instead of horizontal tension, it is horizontal compressional. Compression meaning when they are moving towards each other, like have a look at the arrow here. So the raised landform forms block mountains. Okay, with this the raised one forms block mountains, whereas the part which subsides below forms the rift valley. So rift valley are basically formed because of the horizontal compressional force. Now reverse fault. Now block mountains are of many types. For example, Vosges in France is an example. Black Forest. These are some of the important block mountains that you see in Europe. Right. The third type of mountain are the volcanic mountains. Now from the word itself, volcanic mountain, these are mountains which are formed because the accumulation and solidifying of lava. So when the volcano erupts, the lava comes on the surface, it cools down, it becomes solid. This can lead to the formation of volcanic mountains. So as the sediments keep depositing after every volcanic eruption, they keep on piling, they add up, and then lead to the formation of mountains, which are known as volcanic mountains, which are also known as mountains of accumulation because they are formed because of the deposition and cooling down of lava. That is why they are known as mountains of accumulation, which are collection. Okay, example volcanic mountain Fujiyama in Japan, Vesuvius, Italy. So try to remember an example of volcanic mountain. Moving to the next, what are residual mountain? These are the last type of mountain. Residual mountain are also known relict mountain. Residue means leftover. Okay, so these are mountains which are found in areas which are highly exposed to weathering, breaking down of rocks for a long period of time. Okay, why? So when so if this, just try to have a look at the picture. If this is the original mountain, because of breaking down again and again, rocks have broken down, and this is the relic mountain. After everything has been weathered down, what remains is known as a residual or relict mountain. And here they've given an example of residual or relic mountain, that's a Deccan Plateau. So Deccan Plateau has been eroded by numerous rivers, okay, and the part of the plateau which has not been eroded has remained at high elevation. So everything, whatever has been, broken down or eroded, and what has remained, that is known as your residual or relict mountain. So that is the example of Deccan Plateau, and here they've given you an example of how Deccan Plateau after erosion many had remained at a high elevation. And we can see at the Deccan Plateau, we can see, because it's a volcanic plateau, so we can see lava beds and ash beds in this area. If you have a look at the picture, lava bed, ash bed at an alternate way, and this has led to a development of bands of vegetation. You see the growth of vegetation has developed, okay. Vegetation is developed in the Deccan Plateau in a band, in an alternate manner. That is why they are known as banded vegetation. So this is how, a relict mountain, which is the leftover mountain after after the erosion washing away by rivers, breaking down, what remains are known as your relict mountain. Now, just let's us quickly review. In When we started the chapter, we learned about what are landforms. Landforms are basically natural features that we see on the surface of the earth, and landforms are important. Landforms like mountains are important. Valleys are important to us. Mountains have their own significance. They act as a barrier. They block the southwest monsoon from leaving a country. So mountains are important. Valleys are important. Plains are densely populated, easy to construct, easy to build roads. Plateaus are rich source of minerals. So these are the few important significance of mountain or the landforms. Landforms are important because they affect the climate, direction of winds. Landforms like mountains are source of perennial rivers. Landforms like plateaus have mining. Landforms like plains helps us in development of transport network industries. So these are your significance of landforms. Moving to the next, fold mountains. We learned about fold mountain. I'll just quickly help to summarize and add few features here which we've not covered in the previous slides. Now, what are fold mountains? First, let us try to understand. Fold mountains are called folds because they're formed by folding. It is very important for you to know the process. Folding of the sedimentary rocks due to lateral compression of the earth's surface. This is a perfect picture to help you understand. If imagine this is the surface of the earth, because of the compression, meaning lateral, meaning movement of two plates towards each other, they lead to the surface to fold. This is known as the fold. Okay, so because of the compression, the surface folds and forms fold mountains. The top portion, the upper portion, so they are form irregular wave like formation called fold. The upfold rock strata or the layer is known as anticline. So the top portion is known as the anticline, and the downfold is known as your syncline. So this lower portion is known as your syncline. So the upfold rock layer of the mountain, of the fold mountain, is known as anticline, and the downfold is known as your syncline. Now, there are two types of fold mountains. One are your old fold mountains and one is your young fold. So let's try to understand what are old fold mountain and what are young fold mountain. From the term itself, old fold mountain, these are mountains which have been formed over 200 millions of years. So they've been formed really long ago, 200 million years. Whereas young, meaning they have formed much later than the old fold, meaning 10 to 25 million years ago, not really old. That's why they're known as young. Examples: Ural Mountain, Appalachian Mountain are some examples of old fold mountain, whereas Himalayas, Andes, Alps are your young fold mountains. Old fold mountain, they have gentle slope because they are not steep, because they've been found many years ago. That's why they're very gentler. They're more rounded at the top. The top is not a peak, rather it's round in nature. All right. Whereas they have steep slopes and they're more pointed, sharp. All right. Old full mountain, they are lower in terms of height. They have lower elevation than young full mountain, whereas young full mountain are at a really higher elevation. So that is about full mountains. They basically formed because of folding of the sedimentary rocks by lateral compression. There are two types of full mountains: young and old full mountain. Moving to the next, block mountains. In the previous slide, we learned that block mountains, they are formed because of the submergence, either submerging, going down, this is the submergence, creating lift valley, or upliftment of large block upliftment, this leading to block mountain due to faulting. This is important, faulting meaning your cracking, which is also known as the epeirogenic forces. Okay, now you might get a question on the formation of rift valley. The downward portion that subsides is known as a rift valley. Now, how a rift valley? Because of the tensional forces, cracks or faults may develop on the Earth's surface. If two parallel faults occur, the land between subsides. So, two parallel faults. This is the parallel fault here, fault here. All right. So what is happening? The middle portion subsides, whereas the side portion rises above to form block mountain, and this portion to form rift valley. Okay. Now the other term that you must know are horst. Horsts are basically the flattened summit. This is a flat portion of the block mountain are known as your horst. Okay, so that is about black block mountain. Just know that it is formed because of faulting or cracking, which is also known as epeirogenic forces. This can lead to either submergence leading to rift valley or upliftment leading to block mountains. Now, here are a few questions for you to solve. Please try to understand the question carefully. Please feel free to rewatch the video if you've not understood. You're expected to submit the questions by the next day, that is Wednesday 5 p.m. So please make sure you submit your assignments on time. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, concerns, please feel free to rewatch the video. Still, if you don't understand, please feel free to share your concerns through WhatsApp or email. Thank you for watching. I hope you've understood.